I'm Bob Harlan, and I'm the Executive Director of Yuba City United Way, among other nonprofit duties that I have in the community. And Angel Diaz. Angel wants to be known as...
Angel Diaz.
Angel Diaz from Angel Diaz Presents.
There you go. So for tonight, we'll have a 3-minute opening statement for each of the Senate candidates. Then we'll have a 1-minute answer for each question asked. And the person answering first will get a 1-minute rebuttal. And then there's a 2-minute closing statement for each candidate. And again, candidates, please adhere to the time limits. We do have a timer. She'll be holding up, first of all, a 30-second flag, and then a 15-second flag, that's my guess, and then it time's up. So we thank you very much for doing that. Let's start the first opening statement with our incumbent Senator, Jim Nielsen.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and to the Chamber, thank you for allowing this opportunity for open government, an opportunity for us to present our points of view. As a young farmer years ago, I got active because I realized government was the biggest thing that affected my ability to farm, and I needed to do something about it rather than complain. That set me on a long course of public service. I've always continued my agricultural endeavors, but I've devoted an awful lot of my time and attention to public service. Why? Because we do make a difference. We individuals make a difference. And what I feared then and experienced then, these years hence, I'm all the more concerned now that the people are not running this government. That is, the bureaucracies of government that are the most powerful. They're more powerful even than your elected representatives, and I can tell you stories very specifically related to the Water Resources Control Board or the Air Resources Control Board. And most of what my staff and I do serving you on your behalf is working with and fighting against the agencies of government who are giving you so much trouble. That's a sad state of affairs, but it's got to be, the course has got to be changed. And I rather enjoy the battle with those agencies of government. And we need to wrest that back. California faces many, many problems. The budget is a huge one. And this year, a huge victory has been accomplished. A huge victory, and that's called the Rainy Day Fund. And that Rainy Day Fund, by 1.5% of year, every budget goes into the Rainy Day Fund for economic uncertainties or unforeseen eventualities. And it's been made much harder, and this goes to the people of the state of California in Prop 2, and I hope you'll support that. It's going to be a lot harder for the legislature to take money out and spend that on other than those essential emergency things. That happened with bipartisan support. And my long experience as the budget guy in the legislature, I've participated very heavily in being an architect of that. And it will be one of the highlights of my career, that Rainy Day Fund. Further, for the first time since the Oroville Dam State Water Project, we have accomplished a water bond, Prop 1, that we need to support. Prop 1 will provide storage, so our water policies will not be predicated on the sharing of scarcities. Another huge issue that's starting to be written about a lot is public safety, and I'm uniquely qualified for all the years that I served as the California Chairman of the Board of Prison Terms. I've looked at this up front and personal. And our legislators and our governor have unleashed upon us a crime wave of unprecedented proportions. I want to continue to work on your behalf to attack those challenges.
Thank you, Senator Nielsen. And now we have up to 3 minutes for C.J. Jawahar.
Thank you, Senator Nielsen. Thank you, Yuba City Chamber, and thank you, voters. Thank you, moderators Bob and Angel. It's very good to see you again.
Could you talk into the mic, please?
Senator shared his experience. Obviously, he's an incumbent, so he could talk to you about what he did. As a candidate, since January, I went around the district probably 10 times. I inherited 8 counties in my district, from Sacramento all the way to Tehama, Redwood. Wherever I went, fairs, markets, grocery shops, shaking hands with voters, only 2 things I heard: jobs, water. Jobs, water. It is very surprising Senator Nielsen did not touch upon the job. He said about the water, he said about realignment. But my primary focus is jobs. And I have been writing on the jobs for a very long time now. Here I am, inherited a district which is 8 county, predominantly rural. Luckily, I have a urban area of 150,000, part of Plaza, part of Sacramento. So this is how I divide. This is what I want to accomplish when you send me to the Senate in November. Urban jobs and rural jobs. Because there is no way we can bring a plain building manufacturing into our backyard. I'm not going to promise you about that. But there are ways we can bring jobs into the predominantly agricultural counties. And then there's an entirely separate plan for the urban. I serve as a transportation commissioner, City of Roseville. In that capacity, I know what it takes to create jobs, especially in that one segment of the economy, transportation. You can reduce emission, you can create more job from the construction, you can create more job ongoing basis. Just to give you an example, we are trying to create a 3rd track between Auburn and Sacramento, which would create 10 round trips, cutting the emission and helping people to navigate the rush hours, considering Sacramento is a government town. So I have a lot of other plans. We are going to talk about that today. I'm here. Very good to see you. Thank you for your votes at the primary. And I'm here to ask you again for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. I'd like to mention briefly that these forums are being taped by the Appeal Democrat. It will be on the Appeal Democrat's website within 3 days. Also, just for tonight, the City of Yuba City is streaming live this forum and the City Council forum. And that's on the city's YouTube channel. And it's youtube.com/Yuba City CA. And that'll be, I'll mention it again if I remember before the City Council one starts. But that's streaming now. And again, it's only for this venue that we're doing this. Okay, we'll have Angel ask the first question of Jim Nielsen.
Good evening. The prospects are still alive in this area for a major casino project that's being built in Yuba County, north of Wheatland, next to the Sleep Train Amphitheater. Will you support this major job-producing venue?
Repeat the first part of the question, sir.
Sure. The prospects are still alive for a major casino project being built in Yuba County, north of Wheatland, next to the Sleep Train Amphitheater. Will you support this major job-producing venue?
No, I will not. You're talking about enterprise.
Yes.
And there's a major issue. When you deal with issues like this, you have to hearken to fundamental principles. In terms of Indian gaming in California, there is a fundamental principle. That fundamental principle is reservation shopping. In other words, trying to establish yourselves on other than your reservation property. That project is egregious violation of reservation shopping. The people around here have rejected that themselves. Further, it will have a tremendous impact on other economic generating casinos in the area. Yes, we can do things about jobs, and what we do about jobs is getting the bureaucracy I spoke of earlier out of the way. And that's the biggest issue. This project, though, violates some fundamental premises and the trust of the people of California, who were told you would not have reservation shopping when they voted first to have gaming in California.
Thank you, Senator Nielsen. CJ?
Yes. Yes. Before I came here today, I was looking at the unemployment rate of this area compared to US and compared to California. We are at 12.1%, Sutter County, 12.3%, Yuba County. Jobs, like I said before, it's very important, and I said I have different plans, but if a rancheria could bring in some economy, create some jobs, that's what the way to go. And yes, Measure G failed 10 years ago, before the recession, but now we are still crippled with the recession. We need jobs in our backyard, and I would support. There may be some issues. We will work around with the legislature and, if necessary, with governor too. Thank you.
Senator Nielsen, you have up to 1 minute to rebut, if you like.
This is looking at the micro issue of jobs. You want to look at the macro, you look at something like the water bond. We can vote for that would give us Sykes Reservoir. Tremendous impact. That's why the operating engineers around here are so excited about that project. That's major. That's major. And jobs may be created around in this narrow area, but think about all of the other jobs and all of the other tribal gaming facilities in this area that will be lost. And in fact, if this continues in California, tribal gaming will diminish completely in California. This is, at the best, a band-aid approach, and it isn't taking the broader interests of this community in mind at all. We have many other things to do, such as get government out of the way of business.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll have our next question starting with C.J. Jawahar, and this is from the audience. There is a Senate bill, SB 52, that relates to transparency in government. How would you vote on this?
Transparency, yes. That's exactly I'm running. We in our country, in our California, we turn more laws than what we need. And so the point is, I have seen legislation being enacted overnight, not giving enough time for people to realize what they are going to inherit from session after session after session. It's not presented in the right way, they are not being informed in the right way, so we really need to have a better transparency, and when I get there, I work harder to bring in more transparency, especially my constituents informed. Thank you.
Jim Nielsen.
The way you bring transparency, ladies and gentlemen, is to ensure that the people are in control and you have government being open. The California legislature, over my few years back, have clearly shown me that regard for the rules have diminished and transparency has diminished. Now the good news is the water bond was very transparent. It was very bipartisan, very thoroughly aired over the whole course of the year. But the groundwater legislation was not stuck in at the last minute. Another terrible thing that affects our local school district boards of directors and their prudent reserves, stuck in at the last minute. Knowing the legislative process as I do, I am the foremost critic when these rules are disobeyed and transparency is circumvented on your behalf. Legislators themselves do not even know what they're voting on, let alone how can they represent you. And I am the one, if you listen on the TV channel, am always criticizing and being the conscience of that legislature.
And you have a minute for rebuttal, CJ.
Thank you. He brought out two legislatures. One is the groundwater, and there's the water bond. I'm surprised. He got into the Senate 2013 January. I am his constituent. I haven't seen one letter about water bond or a groundwater regulation. He isn't there. I would expect him to come up to inform the constituents. So that's what about the transparency. I'm an engineer. I have ways to look up on a daily basis, but there are thousands and thousands of constituents. They have no idea what's going on in the Senate or for that matter in the Assembly. So it is the job, and I believe the job of the legislator to inform periodically, not go to them to get votes at the end of the term. Thank you.
Angel?
All right, so now we'll begin back again with Senator Nielsen. Our state, California, has the third worst tax climate of any state in the nation. What taxes on businesses would you look at reducing? And what incentives might you propose?
The taxes on business, the nearly 60 billion tax increase that unfortunately in Prop 30 a few years ago rather, the voters were kind of duped into voting for. That's a huge one. And you know who they're really hitting? They're talking about taxing the rich. That's the couple who are entrepreneurs, who invest and start to build a business. And they reach that $250,000 threshold and all of a sudden they're the rich and we're going to soak it to them. That's what your government has done for us. The bigger challenge are not the taxes as much, which we need to oppose. Government does not need more money. Let me tell you that, gentlemen and ladies. It does not need more money. But there in the legislature, through the bureaucracy, even without the control of the legislators, is through fees and fines been given authority to shift the burden from taxes even to fees and fines. That's the insidious side of this bureaucracy that I condemn because they're ripping our pocketbooks off too.
CJ?
Thank you. Just want to quote one example, the Tesla. Okay, so what is the limit? How much is too much? We offered them $350 million. Guess what Nevada gave them? $1.2 billion. So it's about, balancing how much we can afford to give and how much we really get back to the community from the industries. So that's what is very key when you talk about giving the tax break. We gave tax breaks to the movie companies in terms of the enterprise zones, in terms of big corporations. But what's happening is they come in here and then they go away. Where they go, where they lodge their cash, you don't know that. So before even talking about the tax breaks, we need to really have a policy. How much are we going to get back from those investments is what, especially having failed with Tesla. Thank you.
Senator Nielsen, would you like a minute to rebut?
Well, I'm not interested in giving government more money so we can get more money back in our pockets. Let's leave the money in our pockets and not get it filtered through government and sopped off funding a huge bureaucracy of people. That's not the way to do business. What we need to do is to encourage the individual entrepreneurship, the individual worker and citizen to be able to have more of their paycheck, more of their payroll that they can devote to creating more jobs, reinvesting in their own business. No, we don't need to be worried about how much we get back from government. Clearly, we are not getting back what we are putting into government now. We're getting oppression from our government. We need to take it in the other direction.
We have two questions from the audience that are very similar, asking about how AB 109 is working, where the counties are getting state prisoners. Is it working? Is it not working? And if it's not, how would you change it? C.W. Jawahar, or CJ, excuse me.
Thank you. It's been a very critical question. I've been following AB 109 ever since it was enacted in late 2011. It's not working. Unfortunately, that's one idea. Governor Brown thought it would work, but that medicine is not working. It's the time to change it. I'm working very closely with Placer County jail system. We have a non-governmental organization, and I know what's happening. the prisoners being diverted into the jail system, where the jail cannot handle that population for a very long time. The jails are meant for very short period, not like prisons. So what we can do, now that we inherited, so I always advocated for criminal justice reform. We need to nail this at the root. Okay, we need to stop populating the prison and then diverting to the county jails. Thank you.
Jim Nielsen?
Well, I mentioned my long experience as chairman of the board of prison terms, so I take this to heart. And I've long been the critic, the constructive critic, because there are other ways than this mass relief of unrehabilitated felons into our communities where the rehabilitative facilities are not available to them. And the lawsuits are following right out into our jails from the state prisons. AB 109 needs to be changed. The courts did not say release this crime wave and destroy justice, turn justice upside down, take away criminals being punished for their crime. No, that's not the answer. The answer is accountability, early intervention with our youth, more community treatment, yes, but don't release these individuals until that community treatment is available, and do not destroy accountability, meaning if you do a crime, you pay a price. Now, you don't pay a price. AB 109 needs to be significantly modified by the legislature and supported by the governor, or we the people will take it back with an initiative to do so in the near future.
CJ, you have rebuttal?
Yes, sir, thank you. So we have a Proposition 47 on the ballot this November 7th. Probably that's a good place to start. A partial criminal justice reform. What that says is, okay, look at the crime, look at the risk factor before even make that as a felony or a misdemeanor. Okay, so you make that judgment right there before you populate the person. If you find there's a low risk offenders, rehabilitate them and give all the training they need, educate them, and just gradually you put them back into the community. So that kind of a win-win situation. So they integrated into the community rather than keeping them in a longer period of time, both in the jail and the prison. Thank you.
All right. One of you mentioned the enterprise zone, and I think this is one of those cases where the baby went out with the bathwater because some places weren't utilizing it well, but I believe that our area was, and that's the enterprise zone program, which ended about 2 years ago in California. Yuba City had one of the largest zones in the state with hundreds of businesses eligible for tax benefits. What is your opinion of the enterprise zone demise, and do you see bringing something again that could potentially replace the enterprise zone? We'll start with Senator Nielsen.
Yes, I was a part of that reform, and the enterprise zones were taken away in no small measure because of their abuse. Not by communities such as this one, but throughout the state, Northern California, East and West, Southern California, enterprise zones were abused. And as a part of that, the exercise of eminent domain, seizure of private property without adequate compensation. I'm the founder of the California Alliance to Protect Private Property Rights. That was an issue we were very, very much involved in. Enterprise zones have gone to the wayside, but a new construct of that can happen. But it cannot be built on the same model of enterprise zones where the abuses happen. And such things as designation of blight, that cannot be a part of the deal for the eminent domain seizure. So prospectively, ever how they are reconstructed in whatever way, some of those abuses have got to be curbed, or I will not entertain any new enterprise zones.
CJ?
Ever since we abolished the enterprise zone, what is impacted is the local revitalization. So all those, I'm from Roseville, so I'm looking at the Roseville as an example. When you look at the downtown, it's completely deserted. If we had some money to revitalize that, to bring in appropriate business into the town of Roseville, I'm sure that is true for Marysville, that is true for Yuba City, across the state, in the district too. I agree, enterprise zone had issues, pitfalls, but did we pay enough attention to what around those issues? I guess not. I think we need to bring that back in a graceful way to benefit the community, to bring in more job, especially to build those downtowns. It's so painful to see them disintegrating. Thank you.
Senator Nielsen, did you have anything else to add?
Well, one of the biggest problems with the enterprise zones was the vast accumulation of these reserves, obscene, which in itself was a big tax increase, and a shift of the property tax to this entity that exercised its powers in I would say, very irresponsible way. No, we can come back with some forms of enterprise zones. I'm the architect in the 80s of what was called rural renaissance, kind of a model for local community development that was compatible and helpful to agriculture and resources. We can do that. But we've got to curb the excesses like that incredible accruing of vast reserves and a shift of that property tax to another entity. Give it back to the schools. That's the bottom line.
Thank you. I'd like to mention that a couple of questions have been turned in which duplicate questions we've already had. We had somebody just turn in a question on SB 52, which we dealt with a few minutes ago, so I apologize. Another question from the audience. Please talk about what, if anything, needs to be changed within the California Public Employees Retirement System. Address both long-term sustainability and the need to continue to attract well-qualified public employees. CJ?
Thank you. So as Senator mentioned, we have the Prop 2, which is a rainy day fund primarily designed to pay back the debt, long-term and short-term, and the liabilities. We have about $350 billion liabilities from the pension. So we've been talking about doing reforms, right? But it's been protected by the Constitution. That is a framework. I respect that. But there are ways to work around that. That's what is happening right now. We're asking for more contribution towards the funds, pension funds from the employees, stopping buying the airtime. And there are multiple other ways to bring down the liabilities and paying back from the rainy fund as we go forward. Thank you.
Jim?
A discipline of the legislature to not spend is a part of it, okay? But in terms of what we need to curb it, okay? It's happened at all levels. The spiking, the continuing increase. Now, anyone who now has a pension, that's sacred. You cannot change that. You're not going to change the Constitution to achieve that. We dare not do that, compromise. But moving forward, the individual employee will have to assume a greater burden. Absolutely. In terms of their pension, in terms of their health care. That's going to be a part of it. And government at all levels needs to be more disciplined in terms of how much we do allow increases. One of the problems we have at local government level is pegging the local salary increase to the 5 highest other cities or counties in California. That kind of a formula is a formula for disaster because we have cities like San Francisco that are almost unlimited in what they're giving out to their employees. Yes, jobs in state government are good, but we cannot make them so good that we bankrupt the state.
CJ, do you have a rebuttal?
Yes, sir. This is my philosophy. Whoever serves the community, the society must be rewarded when they get old, period. There is no doubt about it. We are all on board with that. We all agree to it. But how much is a question? And he brought it out. Like I said before, more contribution towards the pension fund from the individual is going to eventually bring down the liabilities and reduce the spike, double dipping. We really need to look at the double dipping, and all those cumulatively going to help us get out of the liability of the pension system. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, Mark Twain once said that whiskey is for drinking and water is for fighting. And right now, Yuba County is preparing for the 2016 relicensing of the new Bullish Bar Reservoir, hopefully successfully retaining control of the sale of water and power from the reservoir, which could mean $200 million in revenue for the county. But it's likely that the state's going to try to wrestle control of the Bullish Bar water away from the county. How do we stop the water grab? Senator Nielsen?
Well, obviously you exert every bit of influence that you can legislatively to stop that takeover. The state ought not be in the business of running Bullard's Bar, okay? That has worked for a very, very long time. The state wants to, and that FERC licensing process is very complicated. That's a federal process, and we can input that, but we don't necessarily control it. We'll work with our local Congress for people to do that, and then we can directly communicate as well in that FERC process. But the state's going to have enough on its hands dealing with Sites Reservoir and Temperance Flat. It has no business getting into asserting its authority in something that already works in Yuba County extraordinarily well. It's a model, in fact, for California, what they've done in that district.
CJ?
While we're talking about the water grab, it occurs to me, before even we talk about the water grab, I think we need to talk about the water rights. Between 1914 and today, we issue like 12,000 water rights for 350 million acre feet, but on a regular basis. On a normal year, we get only 70 million acre water. So the problem is, how are we going to stop that before even we talk about the grab? Talking about the grab, not necessarily the government, the individual well owner, the owner who owns the well is now who is the one selling the water from one county to another county. So that's exactly when we are going to do what we're going to do with the groundwater regulation. So all these combined would reduce, not necessarily the government is grabbing, if I'm right. Thank you.
Sir Nielsen, do you have anything else to add to that?
Well, the water grab, in terms of the state getting control of our groundwater, that has historically been a private property right in the purview of local government. Local governments have the full capability and have consistently demonstrated their ability to manage that. If you give that control to the state, even your domestic well is going to be vulnerable, ladies and gentlemen. That's something we've got to be vigilant about, and as this groundwater legislation is implemented, we have to be very wary about it. Yes, water rights are sacred, but they have been attacked in court decisions and by the legislature of late. Even pre-1914 and senior water rights as well as junior water rights have been challenged just in the last few months by the State Water Resources Control Board under legislation that I've vigorously opposed and will continue to work to see backed off and repealed and to ensure that those water rights are not taken away from us. That is a property right, that water under your property.
Thank you.
And going back to follow up a question that was given earlier, we had a member of the audience say, what jobs? And let's phrase it this way, looking specifically at the 4th Senate District and more specifically, Yuba, Sutter, Colusa, Southern Butte counties, our area. What good paying jobs, not minimum wage, but good paying jobs are most appropriate for this district? And how do you propose to attract those companies?
Well, part of it was what the dream that I had in the 80s of rural renaissance, and that was to bring businesses into the rural communities that were compatible and that would enhance agriculture and resource. In those years, we found out that, and high-tech had not really taken off much yet then, but high-tech jobs are really possible. And I think we can attract some high-tech companies into our local communities. We already have, Reading as an example, where they find that the lifestyle and the cost of living is such that they can put their plants in our areas, at least some of their productivity. In addition, one of the greatest beneficiaries of rural renaissance of the 80s was agritourism, a subset of agriculture, and that's a big deal around here now. The farmers market, the little markets where we direct market our products, our agricultural industry in this area has significantly prospered and kept healthy because of that direct marketing that was been facilitated in this new approach.
I failed to direct the question. CJ was supposed to get it first. I apologize. CJ, go ahead and you have 1 minute to give your answer.
Thank you for the observation. Like I said before, there's rural jobs and urban jobs. When I say rural jobs, we have to bring jobs which will coexist with the agricultural background. Just to give you an example, about a year ago, West Sacramento, they brought in 4 shops, international shops into their backyard. 2 from Japan, 1 from Norway, another from Spain. So that brought in about a $5 billion worth of manufacturing products and jobs. And how much they produce? Very little. Where they get the produce from around us. So we need to liaison to bring such kind of shops in our backyard to coexist with our agricultural produces. So that's what I would do as your legislator. Thank you.
Jim Nielsen, do you want to rebut that?
No, we've got it covered.
Okay.
All right, well, energy independence is a huge issue. Where do you stand on A, offshore oil drilling, B, fracking, and C, nuclear power generation? CJ, we'll start with you.
Offshore, yes, that's a known phenomenon across the world. I come from a region where drilling is common as long as we don't mess with the water. Fracking, hell no. I've been proponent of not advocating fracking, mainly because of the water requirement. If they show me a good technology to extract shale oil, I'm all for that. As your legislator, I would support, but not the fracking technology, especially though it involves water. And about the nuclear, I'm an engineer. I know what it takes to generate power from the nuclear, but then primarily the safety, especially in California, having seen what happened to the NEPA about a week ago, I would not suggest. I would not go in that direction, but renewable energy is another possible area we should explore. We have a target 2020. We want to have 30% of our energy from renewable, like windmill, solar, and etc. Thank you.
Jim?
Offshore oil must be a part of our future. Tranquillian Ridge off the south coast, slant drilling was even something that environmental groups supported. That could have happened 4 years ago in the budget. It didn't. We need to keep that on track. Fracking, the shale extraction, I think that is a safe technology that can be improved, but we should not cut that out of the energy basket as well. Nuclear power, I don't see that being a part of the future, not that it couldn't be helpful as it is in many, many countries. But right now, I don't think in America that there's going to be the will to proceed with that source. Also, I would add that hydropower is the least expensive power, and we need to do more of that. The water bond does continue some monies for some small impoundments that could generate a few megawatts that would be helpful to us. And we must not forget that power generation from water. That's the most efficient and economic source of power for all of us.
CJ, do you have anything to add?
Yes, sir. So, Senator Nielsen and I agree on two. We differ on one. I need to explain why I'm against fracking. So we are in a continuous drought for 30 years now. I'm sure by now you all know how much water is involved in extracting the shale oil. Billions and billions of gallons of water, not just water, mixed with toxic chemicals. Now the problem with that is, what do you do with that kind of a water after the fact you extracted the oil? So that's going to be wasted. Where are you going to store the water? Are you going to put the water back into your aquifer? Never. So it is insane, right? So that is why I'm against. So until we find a neat technology to extract the shale oil, fracking is not the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's start with Jim Nielsen. As both of you know, there's a lot of waste in state government. A huge example of waste is that California has some 500 boards, commissions, and agencies, many with high-paid salaries. Governor Schwarzenegger, some decade ago, had a panel that produced a thick report on government waste, which included many of these boards, commissions, and agencies being done away with. He ended up shelving the project. Is there any hope of re-examining where we can deeply slash the cost of government operation? Senator Nielsen.
That's always the goal, and in fact that reform did have some value. Some of the boards and commissions were eliminated. Okay, that was a great victory, but that was a Pyrrhic victory because there was not much that got changed, not a substantial amount of our budget. The irony to that, the most egregiously offending agency of government, that is the Department of Corrections, which used to be top light, management light, and bottom heavy, all of a sudden got blown up. That was one of his boxes that got blown up. Well, all of a sudden it became both top-heavy and bottom-heavy. That part of the reform did not work, and I'm the #1 critic of that, and can tell you how we can change that within the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. Vigilance within the budget process, and even in these tough times, not enough has been accomplished in terms of paring back state agencies. And that's where I use the bully pulpit as a member of the Budget Committee and as Vice Chairman to do that very thing and to hold back the numbers of jobs that are packed in to state government.
CJ Jawahar.
Now that we balanced the budget, this is the right time to talk about the agencies, but before we even get there, I just want to bring this up. About a couple of years ago, millions and millions of dollars were invested in some of the programs run by these different agencies. I hoped senators and assembly people in the legislature to take a close look at it and stop. I was wondering why anyone would want to allow that kind of money to be spent and then shelve the program. So that is totally unacceptable. So when I get there as an engineer, I believe I have the capacity to take a closer look at what is being proposed, whether it's possible, what kind of a risk analysis is being done, not after the fact you spend $1 billion and shelve the program. Thank you.
Jim Nielsen, do you have a rebuttal?
Well, the way we can start, folks, is we don't need a speed train. We don't need peripheral tunnels. That'll eventually cost us up to $150 billion. There are not many people going to want to jump on a train going between Merced and Bakersfield, let me tell you, as a product of that valley, and there's not going to haul any freight. That's $350 million a year out of the state budget alone, just for that small portion of unelectrified rail for which there's not even a locomotive that can pull it right now. And other things, the excesses. I disclosed 2 departments. One was corrections, another was mental health last year, that took $350 million and redirected it from what the legislature and the governor said they should spend it on, and tried to spend it on overtime and accumulated annual leave to pay that off. So they don't get control of annual leave, and they don't get control of our overtime, and then they shift $300 million. We stopped that in the budget.
Okay, thank you very much. We have time for one more question.
One more question, here we go. Let's talk about passion. What are you most passionate when it comes to solving a problem in the 4th Senate District? What is that problem? And please elaborate on the solution. We'll start with CJ.
When I decided to run for this office, I was looking at this, the census report from 2011, especially the demography, so how economically, how better off we are. Looking at the numbers, this is what I saw. We, as a Senate District 4, share just 1% of California's $500 billion manufacturing output, this 8-county region. And that is why we have 1 in 5 people live below poverty line. When I say people will not like that, they might say this guy is talking negative, but that is a truth, so truth, right? So what are we going to do about it? Bringing jobs. And I already told you how we are going to bring in the job. Beyond bringing the job, caring of those people who are suffering. Anybody can get to that situation, no time, because they don't have a job. Thank you.
Jim?
My passion is and always has been empowering the citizens so that we are control of our government. We are the key and most important voice. Showing individuals and citizens how to be involved, how to fight back the excesses of their government, to rein in that government, to make it be efficient and effective, to ensure that we are protected in our homes and that justice is preserved. And by the way, that sentencing reform initiative is a disaster in terms of justice and public safety because it's going to allow very dangerous people to get away with it. That is my passion, to ensure that we, the citizens, are in control of our government, that we are empowered, and that we are protected by the government that serves us.
CJ, did you have anything to add?
Speaking about the proposition, it's about petty theft and, low aberration. We don't need to lock them behind the prison forever. And coming back to passion, we have heard of food stamp, we have heard of food bank. Have you heard of food desert, where you have no help? Like I said before, I was listening to someone who used to be a nurse. Unfortunately, she lost her job. But now she is in a food desert. There's no food bank. There is no... So we need to support for them to fight back. I am with him. But in order to fight back, they need the support. A temporary support is what we are here to give those people, the suffering people. That's about the passion. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to thank both candidates for their comments, and we're going to start our closing statements. Each candidate has up to 2 minutes for the closing statement, and we'll start with C.J. Jawahar.
Thank you. I really enjoyed about 45 minutes of our conversation here. I would thank Senator Nielsen, first time our road crossed in the 6-8 month long campaign trail. Thank you so much, and I would like to thank Yuba City chambers and you voters. I was looking at, as a constituent, as a voter in the district, what I am getting from my legislator. My legislator got into the Senate 2013, and I was looking at what exactly he brought into this district. Out of 22, it's all public. I mean, you can take a look at all that our senator did for us. There's only one legislation that was chaptered. Everything else either gone back to the SO's office or there is no history. Okay? So my question is, where are we going from here? You heard me saying multiple things. I may not given you complete answer for all the questions. It's not about question and answer. Like you said, the last question is about passion. Where do we want to go from here? This water bond could have been talked long ago. These job creations could have been talked long ago. The school bond could have been talked long ago. That has been long silence. So that is my question. Why? That's why I'm running C.J. Jawahar for State Senate 4th District with your support. I'm here to pass your voice in the Senate, in the Assembly, and in the legislature. Thank you.
Jim Nielsen.
You did not send me to Sacramento to introduce bills. We do not need more laws, ladies and gentlemen. I purposely disciplined myself not to carry very many laws because we're wasting your time deliberating on all these silly laws, and I can give you a whole litany of those laws. What you did send me there is to fight on your behalf. You ask anybody that keeps an eye on the legislature out here in the 4th District, all over California or in Sacramento, who stands up, who's speaking out all of the time on behalf of the citizens, on behalf of a conscience for the legislature to obey its own very own rules. I'm a farmer. I'm used to the handshake deal. I'm used to looking people in the eye. And when you see me talking, there's no transparency, there's no duplicitousness at all. I say what I mean and mean what I say. And you'll hear my point of view, even if we disagree. That's part of the deal. First time again we've had the occasion to meet, and I'm delighted that Mr. Jawahar has decided to throw his hat into the ring. And you can see here that there can be collegial conversation. Some differences, more agreement. That's the way it can work in Sacramento, notwithstanding. And that's how you get around partisanship. You find the things that you have in common. And then what's your fundamental belief? You fight for it with full vigor. And fighting for the North State has been a career objective of mine, but empowering the citizens so that they are truly the bosses, to be their voice, to be their forceful conscience in Sacramento and all over. I spend 2,000 to 4,000 miles, or expend 2,000 to 4,000 miles on my car every month, and have all of the years that I've served traveling around the now 12 counties, that'll be 9 by next year, and the 19 counties I've represented throughout my career. being in touch with the public is the most important thing. And we put out a lot of information on our website, daily communications, read your local newspaper, you'll see what we're doing. We're working for you every day.
Gentlemen, thank you very much.